John Locke. John Locke was an English philosopher, expounded his social contract theory in his book, Two Treatises on Civil Government, wrote in 1660, as a defense of the constitutional monarchy which the Glorious Revolution of 1688 had established in England. Locke on the state of nature. Locke does not paint a dismal picture of the state of nature. It was not, as Hobbes held, a state of war and misery. On the contrary, it was, as Locke says, one of peace, goodwill, mutual assistance and preservation. Men enjoyed freedom and equality in it. Each lived according to his own liking. Like Hobbes's natural man, Locke's man in the state of nature was not selfish or aggressive, but social and sympathetic. His attitude towards his fellow men was that of reason and justice. Moreover, man possessed natural rights in the state of nature, based on law of nature. These rights were life, liberty and property. Although the state of nature was a condition of peace and reason, yet a few inconveniences were experienced in it. They were three in number. 1. The law of nature was not defined clearly, because the interest as well as the intelligence of each man differed from others, and each interpreted the law of nature as he liked. 2. There were no competent, impartial and known judges to interpret the law. 3. There was no common authority to enforce it. That is the reason why once a dispute began in the state of nature, it could not be put to an end. This necessitated the institution of civil society or state in order to remove the inconveniences and insecurities of the state of nature. The contracts. Although Locke did not state it explicitly, yet he impliedly said that there were two contracts. The first contract established the political society or state, and the other the government. According to Locke, each individual, finding the state of nature intolerable owing to its inconveniences, entered into a contract. He agreed with all other individuals to give up his natural right of executing the law of nature and punishing offenders against it. But he did not give up all his natural rights, as Hobbes asserted. Moreover, the natural right was given not to a man or assembly of men, as Hobbes said, but to the community as a whole. Locke described it in these words: there and there only is political society where every one of the members has quitted the natural power, resigned it up into the hands of the community in all cases that exclude him not from appealing for protection to the law established by it. This society thus becomes, by the act of individuals who form it, vested with the functions of determining what are offenses against the law of nature, and punish violations of that law. After establishing the state, the people entered into another contract, this time with the rulers, the legislature. This is the governmental compact. Locke describes it thus: the legislative power, constituted by the consent of the people, becomes the supreme power in the commonwealth, but it is not arbitrary. It must be exercised as it is given for the good of the subjects. Government is in the nature of a trust and embraces only such powers as are transferred at the time of the change from a state of nature. The power of the government is limited to the condition that it is exercised to carry out the established known laws, applied by impartial judges. Locke's theory of limited sovereignty and right of revolt. Locke's contract is a limited contract, for the individual surrounded only part of his natural rights. The power of the state is, therefore, limited. The government cannot exercise unlimited powers, as Hobbes's sovereign did. As a matter of fact, Locke did not even use the term sovereignty in his book. Instead of it, he used the term supreme power of the legislature. As he himself says, the legislative power constituted by the consent of the people becomes the supreme power in the commonwealth, but is not arbitrary. It must be exercised as it is given, for the good of the subjects. The legislature cannot transfer its power to any other person or body. It is but a delegated power from the people, who alone can dispose of it. So, behind the supreme legislature stand the people or community as final embodiment of power. If the legislature or government betrays the trust, the people can depose it. The community perpetually retains a supreme power of saving themselves from the attempts and designs of anybody, even of their legislatures, whenever they shall be so foolish or so wicked as to lay and carry on designs against the liberties and properties of the subjects. Thus Locke defended the people's right to rebellion, which is the basis of this theory of limited sovereignty. Thus Locke justified the Glorious Revolution of 1688 in his country, which ousted the autocratic Stuart kings from power and established Parliament as the sovereign power in England. Criticism of Locke's theory. Merits. Locke's theory has several merits. As H. J. Locke pointed out, Locke is a philosopher of consent. His theory of consent has now become a basic principle of the English and American political philosophy. For this purpose he distinguishes the state from the government. The government derives its power and authority from the consent of the people who are ultimately the sovereign. Locke thus gives us a theory of limited sovereignty or constitutional government. Hobbes made the sovereign absolute, but Locke recognized the fact that there is a power behind the throne, that the exercise of sovereignty ultimately depends upon the consent of the people who obeys it. Another contribution of Locke to political science is his theory of natural rights. He considers life, liberty and property as inalienable rights of every individual. The end for which the state was established is to secure these natural rights. Although the concept of natural rights is misleading, yet to base rights on the nature of man is justifiable. The main defect in Locke's theory is that he ignored the concept of legal sovereignty. He also failed to see that a revolution, however desirable, is never legal.